Transportation Systems, the Knowledge Park location for this semester. Just a little bit about GE. It's the GE Transportation Systems is headquartered right here in Erie. It's a supplier to the railroad, transit, and mining industries, and employs over 8,000 people worldwide. The first project I was involved in was the monitor board project. The monitor board is a Java-based applet that is loaded into HTML code that the field uses. GE Transportation Systems has locations all throughout Canada, United States, and Mexico. And there are sites throughout that uses the monitor board application loaded in HTML to access the data, which I'll show you in a little bit. GE has a total of 3 sites that it uses for web development, staging, and production. In development, it's where all the base development is done. Nothing is ever started anywhere else other than in development. It's tested basically by the person who did it or who created it. Once that's done and the developer is happy, it gets moved to staging, where it's tested by pretty much everybody that person can find to ask them, make sure it's working okay. If everything's okay in staging, there are weekly pushes to the to the production site, which is what the field sees. If there's an emergency, that something's not working, we can push things out to the production site more than just on Fridays, but typically it's done once a week. This is an example of the monitor board. The whole thing is just a Java-based applet loaded in that the back end is drawn by a product I'll show you in a little bit. And basically this is a bird's eye view of a certain location. I forget which one this is right offhand. Certain locations, it's a bird's eye view of it. You got locomotives everywhere, so you can see graphically what would regularly be on paper, since GE is trying to go to a paperless system. Up in the top, I'm sorry about the quality of this, you can see that if you highlight a loco, you can move it around on the map or change the status of it or whatever you need to do. Shop Map Generator is the back end for that. It was created by OpenViz. It is an entirely Java application and draws the maps. The maps then interface with the Oracle database, which is how the website decides where to put the locomotives. This is just a view. It's basically, as you'll notice, the same as the one that you see. It's, like I said, it's just interfacing. So that's the back end. We can draw extra tracks if feedback comes in and somebody says, you know, this isn't really representative of our shop anymore. We can add more tracks. We can change the labeling. Problems that typically occurred is if we had, this one is labeled track 5 position, can't tell what it is, but we'll just say it's position 1. If track 5 position 1 isn't in the Oracle database, then they're not going to be given the option to move a locomotive there. And likewise, if it's in the database but not on the map, they can move the loco there and it will just disappear from the screen and you'll have lost it. And I get a lot of feedbacks about that, and people aren't too happy when that happens. GE is committed to Six Sigma principles, which is 99.997 quality, and so we get constant feedbacks on not only what isn't working, but possible design changes in our site. That spawned the second project I was involved in. I created a web demo for possible changes to the site. What happened is the feedbacks come in and they're sorted by the development team and passed out, and everybody's given a project. And Tom, who was in here earlier and said he worked on the specifications, he sent me the specifications and I created the web demo based on that. Since I did not have access to, and it was supposed to be more of a static demo, I wasn't going to pull the applet from the original location every time. So what I did was I viewed source of the page I was looking at in production, copied the HTML code, and then did a screenshot basically like this and put it in Paint and Microsoft Photo Editor and just used the image tag in HTML to load it. As you can see on this one, there are two new buttons there. They're not really buttons, they're boxes drawn in Microsoft Paint. Then I use FrontPage's image map to create hotspots over top of those two locations, so when you clicked on it, it was like a hyperlink, and it thus gave the appearance of actual button. Over here is if you right-click on this on the demo site, you'll get this pop-up box. That is JavaScript that I found on the internet at one of the many websites that I use to support me. Unfortunately, since I didn't really have the time and they wanted it quickly, I didn't make it so. The original spec was you were going to right-click on one of the locomotives and see the specifications for that locomotive from that drop-down box, but because it was just a demo, you can right-click anywhere on it and you're going to be linked to a static HTML page. It doesn't pull any actual information out of it. The PEB project was my third project. PEB is the pinion end bearing. As I'm sure you're all aware, locomotives are no longer, you throw some coal throw the coal in, it heats up, creates steam, and the locomotive goes. It's a very complicated software-based thing. What we have is Toughbooks. They're mini laptops out in the field, which is how they take the Toughbook out to the locomotive and connect it in, and that's how they upload software. They use a synchronization. It auto-syncs with our site here in Erie, and that's how they download the most recent software so that it can be uploaded to the locomotive locally. One of the biggest problem with this was it wasn't working at the time when I was introduced to it, and so the PEB software wasn't being updated because the synchronization wasn't working. So they created a patch to fix that and said, okay, we need to call everybody and tell them to do this patch or the locomotive isn't going to work and it's not going to be pretty. So I was user support. I'm calling them. They're saying, I don't know what I'm doing. And before I started to call them, they had been sent out very, very detailed instructions. Yeah, some people can't read, you know how it is, user support. They just don't want to do it, or if they do, they try to take shortcuts, and it doesn't work out too well. I got asked a lot of questions. People would call me and say, why doesn't this work? So about halfway through, I did create a frequently asked questions document and sent that out to them, and it actually did alleviate a lot of the phone calls I was getting. Second thing they wanted to do, they wanted to also, in conjunction with this, have a FTP script for them to do for a second piece of the software. They wanted to do it all in command line. They wanted to make it as easy as possible. So you just opened a batch file and it ran a command line FTP service, and they wanted you to log in and all that stuff, but they wanted to do it automated. So I had to research whether or not we could use a text file and import the things to emulate keyboard strokes. That is possible. There's commands for it. I don't remember them right offhand. Also, they were going to be downloading multiple files, so I had to pass an argument to stop it from asking for confirmation. The other thing they wanted to do was download by file size. Each railroad has different file types and sizes, and they wanted to have them all in the same directory, but have a FTP just limit by file size. As I was looking for that, they decided they weren't going to do it. They fixed the problem with the switch that they were having, and so that project was abandoned. Lessons I learned. Everything's a team project. I know everybody complains, oh, another team, another group meeting. Man, I hate that. Yeah, it's like that at work all the time. I have become a meeting person this semester. Even if I'm doing a project, it still comes back into a team in the end. And the other thing I learned was to follow protocol. We do proposals and stuff like that in class, and I was like, all right, we can do this. It seems kind of dumb, but nothing gets done at GE without a proposal or an analysis of some sort. That's pretty much it. Any questions?